Hey guys, welcome back to this channel. So I want to comment a little bit about the increasing state of cashlessness in our society, and I want to discuss some of the solutions that I want to bring forth that I think is going to be applicable to you Bitcoiners out there. But first, I want to show you a video that is going to be very relevant, and it's about my current situation in my own country of Australia, where there are increasingly more banks that are no longer going to be dealing in cash, and there are more and more vendors that aren't going to be dealing in cash, and it's becoming more and more of an issue, although I wouldn't say it's a critical issue at this stage. If you want to use cash at an ATM and stuff like that, you can still do it. However, we are increasingly seeing that it is being phased out more and more, and I'm going to just jump into
Life
this video.
support. The Reserve Bank now predicts its demise could be less than 3 years away, as a growing number of Australians never use notes and coins. Finance editor Chris Kohler explains.
Flooding into the nation's food courts at lunchtime today, and there was really only one way to pay.
Should have options. Not many options for cash. It's always card, card, card.
And new Reserve Bank data shows the end is near. Card use has surged while cash has plunged, now accounting for just...
I want to talk about just the quick problem with this, right? So if you go into a shop and they don't accept cash, you can pay by card, but one of the biggest problems is that there are fees that people don't really think about when it comes to these card transactions. It can cost to up to 1%, if the transaction is like under $10, and a lot of these smaller shops, they'll charge you like an additional surcharge fee. Often they'll tell you about it, but you don't really have much of a choice besides going through with the transaction. And for the average consumer, 1% doesn't sound like much. They're just happy to eat it, but this really adds up over the course of your life.
13% of all payments. At the current rate of decline, cash will be dead within 3 years.
The trend of the last few years implies that we're going to head somewhere close to zero. And really what we're going to see is a stabilisation at some point.
Our whole community is now vulnerable and nobody knows.
Federal Liberal MP Russell...
and I just want to comment as well, it's not really certain that this is some kind of conspiracy by the government at large, although I do believe that is the case. I think for the most part, it's just a natural occurrence that people are increasingly using their cards. I mean, it's just extremely convenient. People get paid directly to their bank account instead of cash. So as a result, it's just natural that more and more people are going to be using what's more convenient to them. So that isn't necessarily a conspiracy or in and of itself. I think, for the most part, I'm not using cash either, although I'd like to. I just don't really come across cash that often.
Broadbent says recent outages at Optus and ANZ highlight the need to keep cash alive.
It's one thing to knock out checks and get efficiencies in the economy, but to take away cash from people takes away their freedom of movement and their freedom of activity.
Bob Catter, meanwhile, is not only aiming to keep cash, but wants new coins without the Queen's portrait, adding the surveillance on digital payments is a growing concern.
If you go into no electricity, then you can't use your plastic magic. But worse still is the last freedom is gone. We're now in 1984.
Of course, all these cashless payments come at a cost. The average surcharge is between 0.5% and 1%. So as we tap more,
the hidden costs also rise, something the government says it's on top of.
We've got to continually ensure that we've got regulation which is up to date with changes in payment technology. That's why we're introducing new legislation into Parliament this week on that.
But at lunchtime, all of those worries sat behind the need for a speedy payment, regardless of the downsides. Chris Kohler, 9 News.
I think for a lot of people, it doesn't seem like a huge deal. Like, it's not something that is going to impact your life in any dramatic way. And the reality is we're all just creatures of convenience for the most part. And it doesn't really feel like a huge deal. Like, as I mentioned, the only way it's going to directly impact people is the fact that they're going to spend up to 1% per transaction. As far as like the privacy stuff, again, it's not really obvious, but the reality is every time you make a payment from point A to point B, it's clear what you sent payment to, so every transaction that you make is recorded on the bank ledger, and that can ultimately be used by the bank. I don't know if maybe the government decides they want to know what the information, what you've been buying and stuff like that. With cash, it's completely anonymous. When you go into a store and you just pay with some notes or some coins, that's it's kind of like a bit of an invisible economy as far as the government's concerned, right? And I think one of the big reasons why governments are more likely to be interested in cancelling out this economy, this invisible economy, is ultimately because it escapes the reaches of the of their ability to tax it. So if you're paying for something in cash, it's not obvious that you had that money in the first place, right? Because if let's just say you did a little bit of money, a little work on the side, you got some cash, then you use that cash to pay for something. It almost doesn't seem like taxable income. Whereas if you receive that money into your bank account, then you used that money in your bank account to pay for something. Ultimately, those funds will ultimately be completely visible to the taxman at some stage. Like if you just buy, particularly if you go out of your way and buy large amounts of things, that money is ultimately going to be fed. Sorry, those funds. It's going to be very clear exactly how much you've got in your bank account based on how much you're spending. And as a result, it's going to be very hard to get away from the taxman when you're paying for everything via your bank. And ultimately, I'm not advocating that people don't pay their tax, but one of the things that does concern me is the fact that every government, it's not just in Australia, is increasingly going to be overburdened with debt. And their primary way of raising capital to finance their debt is through taxing their own citizens, principally through income tax. And the amount of money that the governments are going to borrow, it's never going to go down. It's only going to be more. First, they've got to worry about the interest on their debt repayments. And then there's the fact that they're always worried about trying to get elected, which means they have to promise more and more things. And I want to make this point. The income tax is something that hasn't always been around. Federal income tax it's not some staple of human history, right? There's always been tax, but federal income tax is not it's not some kind of staple of human civilization. So when it comes to America, federal income tax only was instituted during World War II to help pay for the debt that was accrued during that time, which is a huge amount of debt, and it was supposedly a necessary evil at that time. And even though that war was won and it's been so many years, they've never gotten rid of it. And the same thing is perhaps even more egregious with Australia, where the federal income tax only came about in 1915 to fund the First World War. And even after that war ended, they never got rid of it, because once they were receiving all that tax revenue, they just found more things to buy with it, right? So after World War I ended, they were still receiving this money. Well, then it was just an opportunity for them to continue to bloat the bureaucracy, to continue spending money that they didn't really deserve, and they never got rid of it, right? And then there were just more and more reasons to keep spending money, right? Eventually there was the Great Depression, then there was World War II, and even after this massive economic boom, they never got rid of it, even though they should have. So the reality is they're never going to spend less money. They're only going to spend more and more. And this is all you need to know in regards to whether or not our countries are going to continue to increase the tax burden on the average citizen. So although I'm not advocating that people avoid tax, I want to make people concerned about the fact that their government sees them simply as a pay pig, as a piggy bank that they can simply just dip into. And once everything goes cashless, there's simply going to be nowhere left to run besides Bitcoin. Now, the government has already spent, it's like already in debt by the tune of 1.4 trillion, and that's only going to increase. And once they remove cash, they can simply squeeze every last drop out of you. And it's just simply a way of keeping the system going. And, cash is just really that last bastion of finance, just out of the government's reach. But once that's gone for the average person, like they're going to be sucked completely dry. So this is where Bitcoin comes in. Bitcoin is going to be the new cash. It's going to be that new way of transacting that is going to be basically invisible to for the government. And again, I'm not advocating that people not pay for tax, not pay their taxes, but I think there needs to be some kind of bulwark against government overreach. There is no limitation on how much the government can increase taxes by. All it takes is one new government promise or some new, a change in leadership, and the tax can just continue to go up and up. There's no limitation on what they can do in regards to, what they're going to spend on. Maybe they decide, we're going to spend on some new infrastructure. Maybe 90% of Australians disagree on it, but they're just going to keep on doing it. And ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, this is a theft, right? It's a theft when they have the ability to print money out of thin air and essentially steal your money by debasing the value of the money that you own. Then it's theft by the fact that when you put money in a bank, you're essentially a creditor to the bank, right? They give no how can I say? There's no collateral. It's uncollateralized debt you're giving them, and if the banks go belly up, they don't technically owe you anything, And then when it comes to the governments can essentially just spend as much money as they want. They can be as fiscally irresponsible as they want, and they can always just get more money from you. And if you decide that you don't want to spend any more money because we're in a cost of living crisis and you don't want to give any more money than you feel they deserve, then you're going to be considered a tax cheat. And if you even go out of your way to not spend that money, so to not send that money to them, they may even label you as a money launderer, which is going to be something that's going to be more and more people are going to be labeled that with. And I have a real problem with the term money laundering, because someone that doesn't pay that tax, they're going to be considered a money launderer essentially. And I have a really big problem with that definition, because originally money laundering was a term reserved for people engaged in criminal activities. If someone goes and robs a bank, and those criminals take that money and they go filter it through some business to turn it into clean cash, that was what money laundering was originally designated for. But now simply, getting paid all in cash, and then, stuffing it in your mattress, eventually that's just going to be considered money laundering, right? So I don't like that this is the direction our society is going. And to me, the only solution is to have some kind of good replacement for cash that is also something that is beyond the reach of the government and centralized financial institutions. And we've got that in Bitcoin. The question then simply becomes, how do you use Bitcoin to as a means of payment in your day-to-day life? And that's ultimately what my channel is about. So if you're interested in tips on how to use cryptocurrency to debank, make sure to subscribe to my channel. But I give a number of different suggestions that anybody can use. One of my most recent videos was how to use cryptocurrency to buy food, which is, I think, the most important thing that you're going to need, one of your most important expenditures. So what you can do, for instance, is you can, I'm not going to go into too much depth about this. If you're interested, you can check out my video. But basically what you can do is you can use Bitcoin to buy gift cards, like Kohl's gift cards, right, if you're in Australia, or you can use Amazon gift cards if you're in America, and you can use that to buy food, right? You can go to a website called BitRefill. You can use my referral link in the description down below for that. And then, you can just use your cryptocurrency to buy a gift card. Then you can use your gift card to then buy your groceries, and that's something you can do. And anything that you want to buy in general, you can do so with gift cards, right? And then now is a direct line from cryptocurrency to gift cards, which technically allows you to buy anything that you want online with cryptocurrency. But even in person, if you want to go to a brick and mortar store, you should be able to buy a gift card for that as well. Like Kohl's is a good example, Home Depot in America, Walmart. You can buy pretty much any gift card you want with cryptocurrency. The step that you then have to figure out is, how do you get paid in cryptocurrency? If you can complete that loop where you're getting money directly in cryptocurrency, and then you find a way to use your cryptocurrency to buy things that you need, then you can live in that world. You can live in this parallel economy that's completely free. And I think this is the world that you need to work on building for yourself. So again, I've got a lot of suggestions in my channel about how to close this loop. So make sure to subscribe. But as far as getting paid in cryptocurrency, you can do all kinds of things. You don't necessarily have to create a cryptocurrency-based business. Try negotiate with your employer or your clients or whoever you're working with to, instead of paying you via bank transfer or whatever, ask him to send you to pay pay you in cryptocurrency, right? And you'd be surprised how many people would be totally okay with that, right? So if you've got a client that's paying you with PayPal, just remind them that PayPal, it costs money. If they're sending you funds via goods and services, that form of payment on PayPal, that can cost up to 4%, right? If someone's paying you via bank card or something like that, that might cost up to 1%. And there's other things you can do as well. Like if they don't know anything about cryptocurrency, there's ways for them to pay you in cryptocurrency via third parties. So I'll just briefly go into that. So what that means is, you go into a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchange like Noons a better example would be local CoinSwap or HODL. You open a trade with someone who's accepting payment via bank transfer. You simply get your client, boss, whatever, get them to send funds directly to this trader on this peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchange. When this trader receives those funds via bank transfer or whatever, he will then release the cryptocurrency to you, and that way you're able to receive funds via cryptocurrency. You're able to get paid in cryptocurrency, even though the person that was sending it to you might not have any idea how cryptocurrency works. So there's all these little tips and tricks that you can use to debank right now. You don't have to wait for some kind of prophesized day when total Bitcoinization happens and you can just buy Bitcoin via your Lightning wallet at your local grocery store. If you're willing and motivated to do it, you can do it right now. So make sure to subscribe and check out some of my other videos that's going to help you do these things, and make sure to use my referral links in the description down below to sign up with various peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchanges that don't require KYC. So first, the reason why this is so helpful for debanking, first, it's going to allow you to buy Bitcoin without KYC, which is something that's very hard to do in this day and age. Secondly, it's going to allow you to pay for cryptocurrency via a number of various payment methods that aren't usually accepted on centralized exchanges. On centralized exchanges, they usually want you to buy Bitcoin via bank transfer, but on a peer-to-peer cryptocurrency exchange, you can do basically any payment method that you want. And one of the ones I'm very fond of is gift cards, because gift cards allow you to essentially buy real-life goods and services in the real world via cryptocurrency. So maybe you decide you want to sell cryptocurrency for gift cards, get those gift cards, and then you can use them for real things. So and another example that's very useful for debanking is, as I mentioned, you can do these things called third-party transactions that allow you to have someone send you a fiat payment as cryptocurrency. So there's a number of great tools that you can use to debank, and I think this is something that more people are going to have to become serious about as our society becomes increasingly hostile to cash. And yeah, so thanks all for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you next time.